No, wait, don't hit the dislike button. Let me explain. Okay, so I know what I said last week, and in case you forgot, I'll actually play the clip for you right now. So I'm definitely not rushing out to buy more shares either, although I'm not selling my shares either as mentioned, right? So I'm kind of happy with my position at the moment. Okay, so with that being said though, after I made that video, I really sat down and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and then I thought about it some more. And at the end of my meditation, I emerged from my cave and I reached nirvana. Okay, no, just kidding. So what I actually did was I did decide to sell out of all my Riocan shares as the title of this video suggests. And yeah, I've already done that. It's all gone. And today we're going to go through why I did what I did and what I decided to do with the money instead. So before I begin though, if you're located in Canada, remember to get your free $10 when you sign up and invest your first $100 with Wealthsimple Trade, or get a $50 bonus when you deposit and invest your first $500 with Wealthsimple Invest. And links for those are both down below in the description as always. So I thought it'd be better for me to first explain what I did with the money, and perhaps things will become more clear as we go along with the video and you can understand that there is a method behind my madness. Okay, so I sold all my Riocan shares and I used the money to buy shares in Smart Centers, which Smart Centers Real Estate Investment Trust. So it's also another REIT, and the ticker symbol is SRU.UN. And yes, I know that .UN indicates that they're units and not actually shares, but for the sake of this video and for the sake of consistency, I'm just going to call them shares. So yeah, if you don't like that, come fight me. I have a total of 521 shares here today. And for those of you who are familiar with Riocan, you're probably familiar with Smart Centers as well. So they're the guys with the penguin logo. Essentially, they're the guys that own those plazas that big retail stores are built in, right? So they're one of the biggest commercial landowners in Canada. They're also one of the biggest, right? They're not as big as Riocan, but they're almost there. So what's unique about Smart Centers, though, in particular, is that they do have a partnership with Walmart, who's their biggest client. So if you're in Canada, next time you go to Walmart, be sure to look out for the penguin logo because chances are it's built in a Smart Centers location. So essentially, after the Riocan dividend cut announcement, I just decided to ditch all my Riocan shares and go for Smart Centers instead. And no, it's not because I don't believe in Riocan anymore or anything like that. I still think that they're gonna do really well in the long term, and I don't think they're gonna like crash and burn or anything like that. But I still think that it's important when it comes to stock market investing not to get married to a stock, okay? So getting involved in a stock is not like getting involved in a romantic relationship, okay? So when it comes to the stock market, if you see a better place to park your money, then you should just park your money at that place instead, right? You should just go with someone else. Now, if you were in a relationship, that might be kind of problematic, right? Imagine if you just said to your longtime girlfriend or wife, oh, I actually like the barista from Starbucks more than you, so I'm ditching you for the barista. I don't know, maybe some of you have done that, but I'm not gonna give relationship advice on this channel. That's a whole different topic. Anyways, back to talking about Smart Centers. So with Smart Centers, we're sitting at about a 7.8% dividend yield if you're buying it here today. And compare that to Riocan's dividend yield. After the cut, I think that it would be around like 5%-ish if I remember correctly. And even at these average prices that I bought in when I originally bought into Riocan, I think that my yield on cost would be about 6.5% or so. So this means that I'd gain about 1 and 1.5%, something like that, yield if I switched over from Riocan to Smart Centers, despite the fact that I had a really low cost basis on Riocan. So if you didn't understand what any of what I said just meant, basically I'm getting more dividends if I go with Smart Centers instead of Riocan, even if I just do the switch over right now, even though that both Riocan and Smart Centers have gone up in price since when I originally started investing in Riocan. But practically you want to watch out if you want to do this yourself, because I did do this in a TFSA. So there are no tax consequences to realizing gains in a TFSA because if I remember correctly, I was up like 17% or something in terms of capital gains on the stock itself at the time I sold. So you might not want to do this if you have a personal non-registered account because chances are you've made stock gains, you made capital gains on the stock itself already if you invested in Riocan in the past, and you'll get hit with a tax bill if you decide to sell. But besides the dividend though, what else attracted me to smart centers? Well, I always say don't go chasing the yield, right? Don't just pick a company that has a good yield, because you got to analyze the underlying company too, because you got to realize whether or not the dividend is sustainable, right? If the dividend is not sustainable, then you might not want to invest in a company even if they have a really high dividend. Well, I took a look into smart centers and I actually do like what I see here. So right now they're sitting at about a $4 billion market cap, which is slightly smaller than Riocan's $5.5 billion market cap. But they're both decently sized, so it's not that much of a difference if you ask me. But today, let's just quickly go through Smart Center's Q3 2020 investors presentation so that we can get a better understanding of the company. So looking at rent collections, you can see that they had a pretty rough summer with rent collections ranging in the low to mid 80s percentage-wise. But you can see that rent collection is picking back up and sustaining around 95 to 96% again, which is definitely a good sign. Now, what I will say about Smart Centers is that they might be a little bit less diversified in terms of their tenant mix compared to Riocan at least. So with smart centers, at least 50% of their revenue comes from just a handful of companies. So the biggest one of them, of course, being Walmart. However, what I will say is that out of the big tenants that they are involved with, they're mostly big and well-known companies, so I have a hard time imagining them not being able to pay their rent. So most notably, besides Walmart, we're talking about places like banks and grocery stores, which are indeed allowed to stay open even if we have another lockdown because they're deemed essential services. And what's interesting about smart centers is that they do have some geographic diversity. So what I mean by that is that they have location in what's called primary and secondary markets outside of VETCOM. And if you don't know what VETCOM is, VETCOM stands for Vancouver, Edmonton, Toronto, Calgary, Ottawa, and Montreal. So it's basically the biggest metropolitan areas in Canada. And as far as I'm aware, I believe that Riocan is a lot more concentrated in VETCOM areas versus smart centers. They have a little bit more diversity and a little bit more presence outside of VETCOM. So how smart centers has been dealing with the whole pandemic is that they're really focusing on what's called intensification of their properties. So intensification is basically when you add to an existing property to make it better instead of expanding into a new location. So for example, let's say you add a Tesla charging station to the plaza, or you renovate the existing plaza or the existing stores to make them look better, or you add another store to an existing plaza, things like that. And not to mention, they are trying to get into the grocery pickup service with Penguin Pickup, which is a service that they co-created with Walmart, I believe. So it lets you order online and pick up in store. And it's actually more than just groceries, of course. You can order other stuff too. And yeah, it's basically available at over 100 different locations across the country already. And also, I know part of the reason why Riocan decided to cut their dividend is because they said that they needed more money to fund their expansion into residential real estate. However, it's not like Smart Centers is not doing anything about that. In fact, a large part of their presentation was devoted to talking about how they're trying to enter into residential as well. So for time's sake though, I'm only going to show you one example out of the presentation, and this is the Highway 7 and Highway 400 intersection. And hit the thumbs up and leave a comment down below if you know where that is. Right now it's just a boring old plaza, but the plan is to turn it into a residential area that can accommodate 3,900 units. And it's actually labeled as mixed use, so I'm assuming that there will be like retail space in there as well. So it's not like they're getting rid of all retail. So obviously once this is completed, that's going to add a lot of value to this property. And so far at least, they're doing all of this without asking for more money in terms of cutting the dividend, right? So I hate to keep on bagging Riocan, but Riocan was basically saying, hey, look, we're expanding into this residential space and we have all these big projects going on, and we're gonna build all these towers and they're gonna be huge and big and beautiful, but we need more money to make it happen. Meanwhile, smart centers, at least so far, they're doing this without cutting the dividend. So last thing I do want to mention though is the insider ownership rate of both Riocan and smart centers. So as the name suggests, this is the percentage of the company that is owned by the company's well, insiders, right? By insiders, I mean like management and people that are deeply involved with running the company. So generally, you want to see a higher insider ownership rate just because that signals that the management is confident in their own company, that they're willing to hold their own shares. So this might be slightly outdated since this article came out this past January, but the insider ownership rate of Riocan as of January was around like 0.3%, which is pretty low. Compare this to Smart Centers, which is at something like 8.7% last time I checked. And while we're on the topic, let's spend some time to talk about this gentleman, who is Mr. Mitchell Goldhar. So he's the founder of Smart Centers, and he's still the chairman of the company today. So he's still deeply involved with leading the company. And the good news is that he's been buying his own stock left and right like there's no tomorrow. Like, I know he's a billionaire, but damn, like it's like every week he's dropping a couple mil on Smart Centers stock. Imagine buying a new Lamborghini every week for like 6 months. That's how much stock that he's bought. So this gives me a lot of confidence, okay? So obviously, who knows the business better than he does, right? So from what it looks like, he's saying that the stock is really undervalued, so he's just gobbling up the shares left and right. And yeah, all in all, I do like what I'm seeing from Smart Centers, and upon further evaluation, you know, I just gotta go over to them instead of staying with Riocan. And if you are asking why I decided to sell out of my entire position of Riocan instead of just going like half and half or something like that, well, it's only because I just want to watch one stock at a time, right? So I have like 130 or something like that stocks I'm watching in my watch list, and I maybe have positions in like 10 to 15 of them. So I really want to cut down on the amount of things I have to watch and pay attention to. So I thought that it would be kind of distracting for me to just like invest in a lot of different REITs at the same time. So I only want to invest in one REIT at a time. So I decided to go with Smart Centers instead of Riocan for now. Anyways, that's just my opinion though. You don't have to agree. This is not financial advice, and I'm by no means suggesting that you should copy me and do exactly what I did. So please don't just copy me. Please do your own research. However, I do want to know though, if you're a Riocan shareholder, after the news of the dividend cut, did you sell out of your shares, or are you planning on selling out of your shares, or are you just going to hold for the long term? So please let me know down in the comments. And yeah, basically I'll leave the video here for today. Be sure to hit the like button if you enjoy the video, and consider subscribing if you like the series. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, links down below in the description as always. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.